Welcome to long-form content of Tech Bytes and News. This is a compilation on latest news and articles featured on Hacker News. You can find the original links of articles in the description. Please like and subscribe to support future content. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a fascinating critique of the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS, from a perspective you won't often hear. It's a passionate piece. And let's just say the author isn't a fan.
Intriguing. I've always wondered about the practical application of CVSS. Is this article arguing that the system is fundamentally flawed?
Exactly. The author, deeply involved with the curl project, a widely used internet transfer tool, argues that CVSS is simply inadequate for assessing the real-world severity of vulnerabilities in complex software. The system's rigid structure and limited input factors often lead to inaccurate and misleading scores, especially for projects like curl, which has billions of installations across countless platforms.
So the problem isn't just with the scoring itself, but with how it's applied to diverse software? I see.
Precisely. The author highlights how security scanners heavily rely on CVSS scores to flag vulnerabilities. This creates a situation where even minor issues, correctly assessed as low risk by the curl team, are often inflated to critical levels by automated systems. This leads to unnecessary alerts and, in some cases, even contractual obligations to address these false positives.
That's a serious issue. It sounds like the system incentivizes inaccurate reporting, potentially leading to wasted resources and unnecessary panic.
Absolutely. The author points out that the curl team has abandoned CVSS altogether, opting for a simpler four-level system: low, medium, high, critical, based on their intimate knowledge of the codebase and its usage. They believe this approach provides a more accurate and helpful assessment for their users.
Interesting. So they're essentially saying that context matters more than a single numerical score. But doesn't the CVE system require CVSS scores?
That's where things get really interesting. The author explains that while the curl project is a CNA CVE numbering authority, meaning they assign their own CVE IDs, the CVE system itself is built around the assumption that every vulnerability has a CVSS score. This leaves the curl project's CVEs without scores, which are then amended by an authorized data publisher, ADP, currently CISA.
And CISA, lacking the deep understanding of curl's codebase, essentially guesses at the CVSS score, often wildly misrepresenting the actual risk. Right?
Exactly. The author gives a compelling example of a curl vulnerability initially rated as critical, CVSS 9.1, by CISA, despite the curl team's assessment of low risk. This led to widespread alarm before the author intervened and got the score revised down to 3.4. The whole process is described as arbitrary and potentially harmful.
It seems like a classic case of a well-intentioned system failing due to its inability to handle the complexity of real-world scenarios. It's almost comical, in a tragic sort of way.
It is. The author even mentions that the Go security team faces similar problems, highlighting that this isn't an isolated incident. The article concludes with a call to reform the system, arguing that a single, one-dimensional score is simply insufficient to capture the nuances of software vulnerabilities. The love of CVSS, the author suggests, is strong, and there's a lot of money involved in maintaining the status quo.
A powerful argument. It makes you wonder if the focus on a single, easily digestible number is ultimately counterproductive to effective security.
Absolutely. It's a thought-provoking piece that challenges the assumptions underlying a widely used security metric. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News, a Wrenchin. We hope you found this discussion insightful. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a truly heartwarming and slightly bizarre story from Japan. A lonely sunfish, you see?
A lonely sunfish? That's a new one. I'm intrigued. What happened?
Apparently, this sunfish at the Kaikyokan Aquarium in Shimonoseki was getting a bit down in the dumps. After the aquarium closed for renovations, it stopped eating and started rubbing itself against the tank walls.
Oh no. Poor thing. Did they think it was sick?
Initially, yes. They suspected parasites or digestive problems. But then, one clever staff member had a different theory. Loneliness. Apparently, this sunfish was quite sociable and used to interact with visitors.
So what was the solution? Did they get it a sunfish friend?
Better than that. They put up pictures of human faces on cardboard cutouts of uniforms and hung them near the tank. Think of it as a very unconventional form of companionship therapy.
Seriously? That's unexpected. Did it actually work?
Incredibly, yes. The next day, the sunfish was reportedly waving its fins and feeling much better. It started eating again. The aquarium shared the story on X, and it went viral.
Amazing! It just goes to show, even the most unexpected solutions can work. I wonder what the scientific community makes of this. Is there any precedent for this kind of behavior in sunfish?
That's a great question. I haven't seen any studies specifically on sunfish loneliness and the effectiveness of cardboard cutouts, but there's been research on the impact of human interaction on aquarium animals. This case certainly adds a fascinating data point to that research. It also highlights the importance of understanding animal behavior and well-being, even in seemingly unusual ways.
Absolutely. And the social media response? I bet it was huge.
Massive. People were sharing their own photos and videos of the sunfish, promising to visit when the aquarium reopens. It's a beautiful story of human ingenuity and compassion, and a testament to the unique bond between humans and animals.
It's a wonderful example of how observing and understanding animal behavior can lead to innovative solutions for their care. It's also a reminder that even seemingly simple acts of kindness can have a profound impact.
Exactly. And it's a story that's warmed the hearts of people around the world. A lonely sunfish, cardboard cutouts, and a happy ending. Who would have thought? Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this unusual and heartwarming story. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into Tet4Tet, a social network specifically designed for the trans and gender non-conforming community. It's fascinating to see how this platform is shaping online interactions.
Absolutely. It's text-based, minimalist, and free. A refreshing change from the usual social media landscape, right? I'm curious, what are some of the key features that make it stand out?
Well, the focus is purely on community building within the trans and GNC community. Think of it as a safe space for sharing experiences, connecting with others, and finding support. The minimalist design is intentional. It prioritizes genuine connection over flashy visuals. And the fact that it's free makes it accessible to everyone.
I see. So it's not just about dating then? While the name might suggest that, the posts seem to cover a wide range of emotions and experiences.
Exactly. While dating might be a part of it, the posts show a diverse range of content. We see everything from everyday observations, like someone admiring their hair, to deeper reflections on relationships, self-image, and even the challenges of daily life. There's a raw honesty there that's quite striking. For example, one user talks about the debilitating effects of a crush, while another expresses the frustration of unrequited feelings. It's a really diverse emotional landscape.
It's interesting how the posts reveal both vulnerability and humor. One user is craving a milkshake, another is joking about getting tired while eating a fiber bar. This juxtaposition of serious and lighthearted content feels very authentic. It's a testament to the platform's ability to foster genuine connection.
Absolutely. And the international aspect is also noteworthy. There are posts in Spanish, showing a global reach and inclusivity. The platform seems to be successfully bridging geographical and linguistic barriers within the trans community. It's really powerful.
It's also impressive how the platform seems to be fostering a sense of community support. There are posts expressing loneliness and seeking connection, but also posts offering support and understanding. It's a powerful example of how online spaces can facilitate real-world support networks.
You're right. The posts highlight the importance of community and mutual support within the trans community. It's a space where people can share their experiences, find validation, and build meaningful connections. It's a really powerful thing to see. It's a testament to the need for such platforms and the positive impact they can have.
Definitely. It seems Tet4Tet is successfully filling a niche in the social media landscape, providing a safe and supportive space for the trans and GNC community to connect and share their experiences. Bytes. It's a platform worth exploring for anyone interested in understanding the nuances of this community and the importance of online spaces for fostering support and connection.
Precisely. And that's a wrap for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you found this discussion insightful. Goodbye, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving into a fascinating linguistic quirk. Why is zero considered plural in certain contexts? It's a question that sparked quite a debate, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It seems counterintuitive at first. I mean, zero represents nothingness, so how can nothingness be plural? It's a head-scratcher.
Exactly. The question arose from a math textbook example, 0 threes. The initial reaction is, wait, zero is supposed to be nothing, not multiple things. But the explanation lies in how we use numbers as adjectives. It's all about the context.
I see. So it's not about the inherent nature of zero itself, but how it modifies the noun it's paired with? Like 0 books versus 1 book?
Precisely. In English, numbers other than 1, when used as adjectives modifying countable nouns, generally take the plural form, so 2 books, 3 books, and, following this pattern, 0 books. It's a grammatical convention, not a mathematical one.
So it's a grammatical rule, not a mathematical truth? That's interesting. But what about fractional numbers? Are they plural too, like 0.5 books?
That's where it gets even more nuanced. The answer is, it depends. Sometimes, yes, as in 0.5 liters are needed, but other times we might say half a book, using a singular form. The way we express the fraction influences the grammatical agreement. It's a bit messy, I admit.
It really is. So it's not just about the number itself, but also the way it's expressed and the context. This is getting complicated. What about negative numbers? Are they plural or singular?
That's a great question. The same principle applies. You'd say -1 book or -1 books, depending on the context. It's not about the sign, but the number's role as an adjective. It's all about the context, the context, the context.
Right, context is key. But it's still a bit strange, isn't it? We're applying plural rules to a number that represents nothing. It feels a bit like a grammatical paradox. It's like a grammatical paradox.
It is a bit paradoxical, but that's what makes it so fascinating. It highlights the sometimes arbitrary nature of grammatical rules. They don't always align perfectly with logic or mathematics. It's a fascinating linguistic quirk.
So, to summarize, while zero itself isn't inherently plural, its use as an adjective modifying countable nouns often leads to plural agreement in English. It's a convention, not a mathematical necessity. Got it.
Exactly. And that's why 0 threes is grammatically correct, even if it initially feels a little odd. It's a testament to the richness and sometimes quirky nature of the English language. A fascinating linguistic journey. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of grammatical oddities. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into Mercator Extreme, a fascinating project that reimagines the Mercator projection. It's, mind-bending.
Mind-bending is right. I saw the visuals. It's not your typical map. So, what's the core idea behind Mercator? Extreme?
Essentially, it takes the standard Mercator projection, which is notorious for its distortion at higher latitudes, and cranks it up to 11. Instead of cutting off the map near the poles, it continues, showing extreme distortion. It's like zooming in infinitely on the poles, revealing a truly bizarre perspective.
Interesting. So how does it handle this extreme distortion? Does it just become a chaotic mess?
Not exactly. The clever part is that you can choose any point on Earth as the pole. This creates an oblique Mercator projection. Imagine rotating the Earth inside a fixed grid of latitude and longitude lines. This lets you focus on a specific area and see how everything relates to that point.
So it's not just about the distortion, but also about the perspective shift?
Exactly. It's a completely different way of visualizing the world. The usual Mercator map is so ingrained in our minds that we think of it as normal. But this shows how distorted it really is. The extreme distortion makes the usual distortions shockingly apparent.
I see. And what about the controls? How do you actually interact with this? Extreme map?
It's surprisingly intuitive. You can zoom using the scroll wheel, double-click, or pinch. Panning is done with Shift plus drag, right-click drag, or two-finger drag. Double-clicking or long pressing lets you set a new pole. It's very interactive.
So you can literally set any point on Earth as the pole? That's powerful. What are some of the interesting applications of this?
Oh, tons. For example, centering on a major city lets you visualize its transportation network in a unique way. Highways become branching networks, and ring roads become concentric circles. It's also great for visualizing long-distance driving routes. The scale normalizes in a very human-accessible way.
That's a really cool application. I also noticed something about antipodes. Could you elaborate on that?
Right. Antipodes are points directly opposite each other on the globe. Usually one of these points is in the ocean. But with this map, you can find buildings or locations that are exact antipodes. It's a neat way to visualize the Earth's opposite sides.
I have a question. You mentioned that all directions away from the pole point proceed towards the left. Doesn't that seem counterintuitive? Shouldn't it be more, directional?
That's a great point. It's definitely a mental shift. The map is presented sideways because of the extreme height-to-width ratio resulting from the extreme distortion. It takes some getting used to. But the companion map helps visualize the correspondence to a normal map. It's all about understanding the underlying mathematical principles.
Got it. So, in essence, Mercator, extreme isn't just a visual curiosity, it's a powerful tool for visualizing geographical relationships in a completely new way. It's a fascinating project.
Absolutely. It challenges our preconceived notions of map projections and opens up new ways to understand our world. It's a testament to the power of creative visualization and mathematical exploration. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into F-Droid's 2024 recap and their ambitious plans for 2025. It's been a monumental year for them, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The level of progress they've made in decentralizing app distribution is truly inspiring. They've really pushed the boundaries, haven't they? I mean, integrating IPFS and Filecoin support. That's huge.
It is. And it's not just about the tech, it's about the philosophy. They're actively challenging big tech's stranglehold on app distribution, creating a more equitable and privacy-focused ecosystem. That's a powerful vision. They even overhauled core client logic, breaking it into libraries for easier embedding in other apps. Clever!
I see. And the Repo Maker tool? That's a game changer for developers, making it easier for even non-technical users to create and publish their own F-Droid-compatible repositories. This really democratizes app development, right?
Exactly. It's all about lowering the barrier to entry. And their work with MobiFree, a decentralized app store alternative, further solidifies their commitment to this open-source vision. They're not just building tools, they're building a movement.
But isn't there a risk in decentralization? Could it lead to fragmentation or make it harder for users to find apps?
That's a valid concern. However, F-Droid's approach seems to mitigate that risk by creating a network of interconnected repositories. The central registry of DApp-AR-compatible repos helps with discoverability. Plus, they're actively working on improving user experience and making the tools more accessible.
Good point. Their community contributions are also impressive. Over 7,200 app updates, 400 plus new apps added. That's a testament to the dedication of their community. The sheer number of packages built hourly is staggering.
It really is. And the fact that they're adding new team members, a project manager and a grant administrator, shows they're planning for sustainable growth. This isn't a flash in the pan. They're building for the long term. The Open Technology Fund grant for infrastructure improvements is a huge win too.
Absolutely. Securing funding is crucial for any open source project. It's great to see them focusing on infrastructure resilience and security. That's often overlooked, but so vital for long-term stability. And the €50,000 available through NL-Net NGI MobiFree for project ideas is a fantastic opportunity for developers.
It is. They're really setting the stage for a bright future. Their commitment to decentralization, their thriving community, and their strategic planning. It all points to a very exciting 2025 for F-Droid. They're not just building an app store, they're building a movement.
I couldn't agree more. It's inspiring to see such dedication to open source principles and user empowerment. It's a model for other projects to follow.
Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. We hope you found this discussion as insightful as we did. Remember to support F-Droid through contributions, donations, and spreading the word. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into a developer's frustration with Xcode 16 and its handling of local Swift packages. It's a pretty spicy take. Intriguing, right?
Absolutely. I've heard whispers about Xcode's quirks, but this sounds particularly frustrating. What's the core issue?
The author's working on a Swift package, TextKit autocompletion. And the way Xcode 16 manages local package dependencies within a demo app project is, shall we say, suboptimal. In previous Xcode versions, you could just drag and drop. Now it's a more formal add dependency process.
So what breaks? Is it just inconvenient, or are there serious limitations?
Oh, it's far beyond inconvenience. The author lists 3 major problems. First, file operations. Adding, removing, or renaming files in the package doesn't update the demo app project. You get build errors, and you have to restart the whole thing. Ugh.
That's a major productivity killer. What about the other issues?
Second, testing. Xcode's test plans completely ignore the package's tests. He can't run them from within the Xcode environment. And third, you can't open the package separately. It's locked into the demo app project. It's a triple whammy of Xcode woes.
Wow, that's a recipe for developer madness. So what's the workaround?
The author's solution is elegant in its simplicity, yet a bit sad. He uses Emacs, or NeoVim, if you're into that, to edit the package and run tests using the command line Swift tools. Xcode is then only used to build and run the demo app. A bit of a Frankenstein approach, but effective.
So a dual editor workflow. That's interesting. I guess it highlights the limitations of relying solely on one IDE. Does he mention anything about the quality of the LSP support in Emacs?
He actually says SourceKit LSP is serviceable, which is developer speak for it works but it's not perfect. He appreciates having autocompletion and syntax highlighting outside of Xcode though. It's better than constantly restarting Xcode, he says.
I can definitely relate to that. The article ends with a strong recommendation to learn a backup editor. Wise words. It's a good reminder that relying on a single tool can be risky, especially when that tool is as central to the workflow as Xcode.
Exactly. The whole thing underscores the importance of having options and not being completely reliant on any single piece of software. Plus, it's a pretty compelling argument for exploring editors like Emacs or NeoVim. They might just save your sanity.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for breaking down this insightful article. It's a cautionary tale for all developers.
You're welcome. And that's all the time we have for today's Tech Bytes and News. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of fluorescent mineral photography. It's a real challenge, you know? Getting those vibrant colors to pop in the dark, it's not as straightforward as snapping a picture of a well-lit landscape.
Absolutely. I've always been intrigued by those stunning fluorescent mineral photos. But the process sounds incredibly complex. What are some of the biggest hurdles photographers face?
Well, the biggest issue is that cameras aren't designed for this. They're optimized for well-lit scenes. We're talking long exposures, wildly varying brightness across the specimen. You might have intensely bright Esperite next to barely visible hardy Stenite. It's a real balancing act.
So it's not just about pointing and shooting?
Oh no, not at all. Dark adaptation is crucial. Your eyes need to adjust to the low light to judge exposure properly. And focus is a nightmare in low light. Many cameras struggle. So often you have to lock focus in bright light, then switch to darkness while maintaining that focus. It's a bit of a dance.
I see. And what about the distance from the lens to the subject?
That's another critical factor. Many lenses have a minimum focusing distance, often around 12 inches or more. So you might need to shoot from further away and crop later. It's all about maximizing image quality and getting that sharp focus. Using the highest image quality setting on your camera is key, even if it means a larger file size. You can always crop later.
Makes sense. And what about shooting modes, auto or manual?
Manual. Always. Auto mode is designed for well-lit scenes, not glowing rocks. Manual gives you complete control over exposure time, aperture, ISO, and white balance. You need that level of precision to avoid overexposure, especially with bright minerals like willemite or esperite.
But if someone must use auto mode, are there any workarounds?
Yeah, you can try adjusting exposure compensation. Decreasing at a few stops can help control overexposure. Also, try manually setting a low ISO, even in auto mode. High ISO introduces noise and graininess. And a tripod is essential, regardless of the mode, because those long exposures are unavoidable.
Right, long exposures. How do you determine the right exposure time?
That depends on many factors. The brightness of the subject, the UV lamp's wattage, the distance of the lamp, and the ISO setting. Greens and yellows are brighter to the camera than blues, so exposure times will vary. For example, very bright minerals might need only a second, while others might need 8 seconds or more. It's a lot of experimentation.
And what about those red fluorescent minerals? The article mentions some challenges with them.
Ah, yes, red rocks are notoriously difficult. It's because of the camera sensor's Bayer filter array. It has more green and blue sensitive elements than red. So, when you have a predominantly red subject, the camera lacks data from the other color channels, leading to a blurry, less detailed image. A foveon sensor, which is sensitive to all colors in each element, would be ideal, but those cameras are less common.
That's a really insightful point. I hadn't considered the sensor's limitations. So what about other settings like ISO, f-stop, and white balance?
I usually stick to ISO 100 for maximum detail and minimal grain, even if it means longer exposures. For the f-stop, it depends on the lens, but I find f/11 works well for me. And for white balance, I shoot in RAW and adjust it later to compensate for the blue bleed from the UV lamps. RAW gives you so much more flexibility in post-processing.
And what about UV lighting? How crucial is that?
Crucial. More lights mean brighter fluorescence, and brighter fluorescence means shorter exposure times, reducing blue bleed. The quality of the UV light is also important. For shortwave, Hoya U-325C filters are excellent. For longwave, Nichia 365 nanometers LEDs are a good choice. Some people even paint the rock with a handheld UV lamp while the shutter is open.
Wow, it's a whole science. What about backgrounds and post-processing?
I prefer a black background, but others use different approaches. Post-processing with software like Photoshop is essential for fine-tuning brightness, saturation, white balance, and correcting any imperfections. But remember, it's crucial to be ethical and not exaggerate or alter the image. Just enhance what's already there.
Absolutely. And what about those really challenging specimens with a mix of bright and dim minerals?
Ah, the hard rocks. Those require multiple shots at different exposures, then merging them in Photoshop for an HDR effect. Or, you can expose for the bright minerals and explain the dimmer ones in the description. Even smartphones with HDR can produce decent results, with careful lighting and exposure control.
So it's a combination of technical skill, artistic vision, and a good dose of patience.
Exactly. And don't forget cleanliness. Dust and lint glow bright blue under UV light, so keeping everything clean is crucial. An ultrasonic cleaner can be a lifesaver. And remember, there's always more to learn. Keep experimenting, keep exploring, and keep those glowing rocks shining.
Great advice. Thanks for sharing your expertise. This has been a truly illuminating conversation.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes and News. Until next time, keep exploring the wonders of technology and science. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the daily roundup of Tech Bytes and News. See you again tomorrow. Goodbye.